Okay, in honor of Aronovich, we're going to do chametz umatzah tonight for the manashtana, and we'll get the chametz being sent, but we're going to do haggada. So this is how it goes. L'maisa, one of the most popular points of the haggada is the list of the 10 makkos. And then after the list of the 10 makkos, Rabbi Yehuda then gives an acronym, the Adash B'achav. And the most obvious question is going to be, Rabbi Yehuda, thank you, but no thank you. I could do this on my own. And more so, a really important question is, when you make an acronym, it has to mean something. The words Adash B'achav are not even remarkable. Some add to the question even more so. Even more so, they say, wait a second, within the Adash B'achav, you have repeat letters. Dalet of Ditzach is also repeated in Adas. So I don't know, how do you know when, if you, let's say you say right away, it's the order of the makkos. That's the easy way to do it. Dam Tzradei Kinum Orav Dever. So if you don't know anything, maybe it's Dever Tzradei Kinum Orav Dam. You can't have an acronym if that two letters are the same. As well, welcome back, as well, what other letters repeated? Put him on the spot. He's on Florida time. Not only is the Dalet repeated, the Beis is repeated. B'achav. So how do you know what is what? So if you only want to remember the makkos, if you don't know the song, if you don't know the song, then the acronym does nothing for you. Because if I tell you the Adash B'achav, okay, now what? What am I going to do? So some Rishonim answer, because they take this question seriously. Even though we might not take the question seriously, they ask this question. Rishonim say, what is the point of an acronym if two letters are repeated?
Also, why the three short?
Yeah. We'll get to that soon. So they say like this, which you have to know how brains work. I don't know how they say. They say in the rules of acronyms, you didn't know, there's a whole list of rules of acronyms. In the rules of acronyms, you're not allowed to repeat a letter unless it's so obvious. If it's an obvious thing, you're allowed. And they say, when does it become obvious? If it's the first or the last letter that's repeated. Unbelievable. So Ditzach, since the Dalet is first, and Be'achav, the Beis is last, they say, when it comes to first and last letters, allowed to be repeated. So in Hilchas acronym, which I never heard of until recently, in Hilchas acronym, you can't repeat a letter because then people get confused. But no one gets confused on the first or the last letter. So therefore, the Dalet of the Tzach can't be repeated, and the Beis, the B'achav, can't be repeated. That's the...
Which acronyms are we talking about?
In general acronyms. Depends what. Now, there's two types of acronyms. Yeah, but that's not. Is that a real acronym? That's not an acronym. That's people made up a nickname. I don't know if that's a real acronym. An acronym is like a memory. We don't say the word Rambam as a try to remember who the guy is. It's not a memory trick. It's just that's his nickname. Maybe. Yeah. Could be. There are people out there who think it's Rabbi Moshe. I don't know. I'm saying, but people mix it up, so they might get it Rabbi Moshe. I have no idea. Okay.
The last letter of each word will be able to be the whole sentence, even if the other letters are.
What? That's a palogram.
Only the first and last you need
right.
The whole sentence.
Maybe. So now one famous answer is this. One famous answer of why Rabbi Yehuda made it necessary, Rishonim say this, why he made it necessary to do it, is because when you read in Tehillim, they don't go in order. Shockingly, by the way. If you read Tehillim in Perek Ayin Ches and or Kofei, the orders, if we have a siddur here, the orders of the makkos are not in order. So he wants to say, Rabbi Yehuda said like this. Someone's reading Chumash, we know a general rule in Chumash, there's Ein Seder L'Mikra, there's nothing, you can mix things around. And then you're going to go to Tehillim, and you're going to see in Tehillim, the order is different. In Kof Ches, let's say, Kofei, let's say. If you go to Tehillim, you see it's different, so you don't know what's real. How do you know what's going to be real? So it tells you, I'll tell you what's real. Rabbi Yehuda comes along and tells you, I'm going to tell you what's real. Remember how the order goes from this acronym of the Adash B'achav, we'll remember it. So it says like this. The first one it says is Sholach Choshech. Choshech is an early on, obviously Choshech. It says Sholach Choshech v'yeshach v'leimaru estavorei. That's in Pasuk Chaf Ches 28. Pasuk 29. Hafach es memeim l'dam. Turn the water to blood. So if you're a textualist on Tehillim and you don't know Chumash, or you know Chumash, but you decide, we know an old rule, Ein Seder L'Mikra, you could have it, the order of the psukim could be out of order. So then you're going to get to Tehillim and say, David doesn't go out of order within the same parak. So you know what? Since David has a different order, that must be the order. So Rabbi Yehuda said, I want to avoid people being confused, because then I read Tehillim get confused. So I'm going to do the Adash B'achav and make it out.
Is there any reason why we have to know the order?
So now, Rosh Schweitz asked a bomb question, which I wasn't going to bring up tonight, but now I have to. Put me on the spot, and it's a good one. What's the difference? Do we need to know the order or not? So this is going to be from Mamash for Israel, the Oberlander. We have to have an Oberlander word. We keep on calling him Yeki, but it's Oberlander word. We have to have an First I call him a Yek, he says no. Now I call him Oberland, he says no. He keeps on switching on me.
He's a Litva.
My grandfather, my father's father was Litvish.
So the Oberland is like this. But the Chassam Sofer says this. Fascinating idea. The Chassam Sofer says, which I think he's not trying to answer David Melech. I'm coming. This is why I'm explaining it. You're asking, is there a point to know the order? I'm saying, why did David Melech do it out of order? Stay with the Chumash. That's the easy way to do it. Why do it out of order? So they say, brought down, Kabbalistically speaking, I think, did you guys do Pei or Klein recently? The Mishnah says, you're not supposed to go around in a wheelchair. Why? Because you create an atmosphere where, God forbid, if you're in a wheelchair, you'll need a wheelchair. You create your own bad energy. And good energy, by the way.
If you don't need one.
If you don't need one, obviously, if you don't need one. I started a minute when I was a Bachar in Lakewood. And now I see everyone does it, by the way. I started as a joke. I have to be honest, I started as a joke. I should put this on tape. After I'd go to, when the chassan and Kala would finish the chuppah and everyone dancing and everything like that, I would walk down the chuppah by myself. Everyone was away, left room, I'd walk down the chuppah, I'd say, as a school, I'd walk down the chuppah. Now I've been at weddings, I see people doing it. But I made this school up. It's no real thing. I made this up. Maybe it's real. Maybe I made it up and it's still real. Just like it says you can't sit in a wheelchair, because God forbid you'll need a wheelchair, so walk down the chuppah and God forbid you need a chuppah. I don't understand.
That's a segula?
Depends where you are. In Bethel, you say, God forbid you need a chuppah. I made up the school. But so they want to say like this. The Chassam Sofer says that if you're going to, I don't know, even though it's Torah, if you're going to say the makkos in order, you create a negative energy where now the makkos could be applicable to the world today. So he says you should never say the makkos in order. Now what happens twice? What happens twice when you go through it? What? No, doesn't. Maybe I said to the world. But listen, no, that's a friend of mine. So it goes like this. When you read it, it's unbelievable. It's the next idea. This is the trick question. We don't want to put pressure on the spot, pressure, but we're going to do it to you because I can't pick on the Yeki anymore.
Listen, I want to ask you something.
No,
he was in Florida for 5 months.
You're next. He's
Why
right.
can't he be the carbon?
Okay, you're next. But Pressa, the famous question is, what is the color of George Washington's white horse? Moses doesn't know. What's the color of George Washington's white horse, right? So if I tell you like this, here's my trick question. How many words in the song of the 10 makkos, Dam Tzefadei Kina, how many words? 10.
No, makkos.
Makkos B'chav. It's the funniest thing around. So you start, that's my trick question. What is George Washington's white horse? Maybe it's white. How many makkos in the song Dam Tzefadei? 11. What? Dam Tzefadei Kinam Orev Devesh Chin Barat Arba Choshech. Makkos B'chav.
It's wrong.
So why? So Hubner wants to say, why does Ranovitz is way ahead? Why does he add in the word makkos? Because you don't want to say it in order. If you say the 10 makkos without the word makkos as the 10th word, and you say Dam Tzefadei Kinam Orev until the end, then God forbid something negative can happen. So what we did was the Tanna Kama said, I have a good idea. I'm going to add in the word makkos to makkos b'chayros. This is all my additions to the whole thing. Rabbi Yehuda comes along and says, I don't know, that sounds a little finagleish, no? I add in the word makkos, maybe yeah, maybe no, but you're still saying Dam Tzefadei. It sounds bad. You know what I'm going to do? New game. Acronym. Acronym covers it. Don't worry about it. So I say the acronym. We say both because we're going both shitas. But it means like this. According to this thing, you have to know in general. It's very possible, because there's a second question, not only why did Rabbi Yehuda do this, but why are we talking about it? Let's say Rabbi Yehuda had good reasons to talk about it. Why Rabbi Yehuda came along and said, you know what, I want to make an acronym. Okay, Rabbi Yehuda Shkoyach, but why are we talking about the haggada? So you could say now, and there are other approaches, that Rabbi Yehuda is coming to argue on the Tanna Kama. And many different approaches, what he's arguing about. What is Rabbi Yehuda arguing within the Tanna Kama? So this answer is now what? The answer is, how do you avoid, God forbid, creating bad energy by saying the makkos? Tanna Kama holds, you could say 10 makkos as long as you add in a word. So say 10 makkos and the last word. So it breaks up the system. And Rabbi Yehuda comes along and says, no, I don't like this idea of saying the words. You know, it's too close to home. So you know what you got to do? Say an acronym.
And he takes out the makkos.
And what?
He takes out the name from makkos b'chav.
Around us right ahead. You know what he said? Because when Rabbi Yehuda is doing the acronym, let's do the other trick question. Well, let's do. We can't pick on him. So the first question that everyone got wrong: how many words in the song Dam Tzefadei of the 10 makkos? We said 10. It's 11. Now go the other way. How many letters in Rabbi Yehuda's acronym? You should say Rabbi Yehuda's following Tanna Kama. It should be 11. It's not 11 Because Rabbi Yehuda does not say, that sounds like an Arab, Tzach Adash B'achav. Like an Arab, right? Ba'achmab, it would be, right? It doesn't have it. It's he only has 10 letters. The tzach, which is 3 adash. Be'achav, without the mem. So it's an unbelievable idea. The Tana Kama comes along and he has 11 words. Rabbi Yehuda comes along, he makes 10 as the acronym. So we could say like Aranis was hinting to. He says like this: if you're going to say the words, maybe he's not even arguing. According to this, he's not even arguing. Well, I have a new guy. He's not arguing. He's saying like this: if you're going to say the makkos out, then you have to add in a word. I like that idea. But I have another way you could do. You could say an acronym and not add in a word. So you either have the choice to say Dam today, Akinam Arav Devashken Makkos B'chayris, or the Adash B'achav. Those are the two ways. But now, for the original idea of the decade, the most unbelievable idea. It goes like this. I have to slow it down because it's really, really good. I love this idea. Dam is what? Blood. What's the plague of blood? The plague of blood is that the blood was the plague. Right? That means the blood is like the stick that hits the person, right? The blood is the negativity. Next one, Svadeya. The frogs are negative. The frogs are affecting the Egyptian people. Down to there. Kinim. The lice affect the people. And go through it now. We're going to skip over one in a second, come back to it. Remind me, Israel. What's the last one? If you would not have the word makkos b'chayris, and you would say Dam Tadeh and you go to the end, what would the word b'chayris mean? That what about them? That they were killed? That's not. There's no symmetry. It's not that Dam was affected. The Dam was the affector. The Tzvadeya wasn't affected. The Tzvadeya was the affector, if that's even a word. When you get to B'chayris, what are you saying? The B'chayris were what? Were affected.
Right.
Affected.
Right.
That doesn't stim. It's not. It doesn't work well. Dam, all the makkos. Dam, Tzvadeya, Kinim, Arav, all the negative aspect.
With the makkah itself. The last one was who the makkah was on.
That's a better way of saying it. But that's not good in the song. The last one is who the makkah was on. That's not fair. So therefore, the Tana Kama says, listen, I want to make sure no one makes a mistake here. So I'm going to add in the word makkah to tell you that no, it's not. Doesn't stem. You're right. I could have said dam of what? Dam of water turned to dam. I don't need that because every plague itself, the word being used is the chefza of the punishment. The dam was the thing using the punishment. Tzvadeya was used as the punishment. Becharis wasn't used as the punishment. The Becharis were the punished. So in order to make sure you don't make that mistake, we add on the word makkos. Because makkos now means in English, I don't know what's makkah in English? The plague of.
Yeah.
So the plague of firstborn is not the plague of the firstborn hitting you, dam hitting you, tzvadeya hitting you. No, it was upon. That would be a better word. Makkos means the plague upon the firstborn. So the Tana Kama comes along and he says, listen, nothing to do with heebie-jeebie. He's not going to the Oberland. He doesn't believe in this stuff. He says, listen, I have a simple thing. We got a problem. There's no consistency. Down to the kingdom Arav doesn't work consistent with the word B'chayris. So what I'm going to tell you now to do with the word B'chayris is, I'm going to add in the word. What does Rabbi Yehuda do? Aronovitz pointed out, Rabbi Yehuda took out the acronym because Rabbi Yehuda is arguing on the fundamental concept of what the plague of the firstborn was. So we said until now that the plague of the firstborn was the plague upon the firstborn. They were the victims. They weren't the stick and the gun. What do the gun rights say? Humans don't kill, the guns kill. Is that what they say? Something like that, right? Guns don't kill, humans kill, right? So the gun is the dam, the tzvadeya, the kinim. The b'chayris aren't the gun. The b'chayris are the victim.
Right.
So makkos b'chayris. Yehuda says, no. There's a medrash.
Going to get back to what?
No, but not bad. The medrash says like this. When you read the Chumashim in the Torah, it's coming up to Choshech, and at the end of Choshech, Pari says, I'm not going to see your face anymore. I'm done with you. Well, Choshech had no warning. When did the Asra of makkos b'chayris take place? So Rishonim have an argument about this. When was Pari told, your firstborn's going to die? Some Rishonim learn it happened all the way in Parsha Shemos. Ramban. That means when Moshe met Pari the first time, we have the Chumashim here, Moshe tells Pari, listen, let my people go, or else your firstborn's going to die. It's a year earlier. If each makkah takes 1 month, it's a year earlier. What happened? The 9th plague ends. There's a medrash. The 9th plague ends, and Moshe Rabbeinu had said, the news had spread that all the Jews who weren't worthy are out, and there was supposed to be 10 plagues, and now the gig is up. And the Tosfos brings down this medrash. The medrash says that the firstborn children came and made a revolution. They said, listen, buddy, if you don't let the Jews out now, the next plague is upon us. And what did the Parah say? He sang the song. No, I will not let them go. So what did the firstborns react to? No, I will not let them go. No, we're not. They took up arms. The firstborns took up arms, and the Medrash says they killed the Egyptians, including their own fathers. The Egyptian firstborn children in Egypt, in the last Makkah, right before Makkos B'chav, what's the phrase? L'Makkah Mitzrayim, what? Bivchoireihem. How do you read those words? L'Makkah, to kill, Mitzrayim, the Egyptians. What should it be? Bivchoireihem? What does Bivchoireihem mean? It should be L'Makkah Mitzrayim B'chareihem. So what do you mean you killed the Mitzrayim with their firstborns? It means, like we're saying now, that the firstborns were the gun. They were the dam. They were the tzvadeya. They were the gun. They were the plague that affected the Egyptian people. They were the negative energy. So Rabbi Yehuda and the Tanakama are pointing out or arguing, play games.
What you're saying is that the B'charim didn't die?
They died after that. But what was the real plague? The plague, let's say the B'charim died. Think of statistically speaking, I'm adding this in now. How many firstborn sons are there in a family consistent with the family? What percentage of the population are firstborn sons? I don't know, I'm making up a number. 6%? 15, you think?
No.
Depends how many kids you have, right? So I don't know if girls. If you want to be like the Jews, if you have a by Pidyon Ben, what are they? If you have a stillborn, God forbid, if you have a miscarriage, right? I have a student of mine that when I went to his son's bris, he's a student of mine. He made a bris, and he made a Pidyon Ben. And at the bris, they got up the father. He's 27 now, and he said that I'm the 5th generation of a Pidyon Ben,
wow.
And my son will have a Pidyon Ben. Because why? To get a Pidyon Ben, you can't be a Kohen or a Levi.
Right.
You can't be a girl. You can't have had a miscarriage. You can't have had a C-section. Right. So statistically speaking, he's getting all excited here.
The same thing, the wife can be a bas
And the wife can't be a bas Levi. So the odds of having a Pidyon Ben, I'm making up a number right now, is going to be boy and girl, you lose 50%. Right. Miscarriage will add on as another 10%. Father, Kohen, Levi, Yisrael, C-section. So let's say the first Bechar will give it, I make up a number 18%. It's much less. His son, 18 divided by 18 divided by 18 divided by 18 to 6 generations. Now, so let's say it's not.
Anyone in this room have a Pidyon Ben?
Did you have a Pidyon Ben or make a Pidyon
I
Ben?
made a Pidyon Ben.
You made how many?
One.
I was including grandchildren. In all your family, you made one.
You include grandchildren?
Yeah.
Then 6.
As usual, a statistic anomaly. He thinks it's a compliment. Let him believe it. You have 6, really?
Mark! Do you see how we take care of me? This was the whole time when you were there.
Yeah, 6 mitzvahs. No, your mama had 6 in your family? That means your son and then you had 5 others?
Huh?
5? That's amazing. So it is a statistic anomaly. I'm telling you.
Yeah.
So now I am agreeing, by the way, if anyone's listening to this
And
thing.
then if I go to nephews,
Wow.
8 or 9.
That's amazing.
Three.
Really?
My son and I had
Hold on 5 minutes and then we'll close this up. So it goes like this. Now obviously, yeah, good point. Obviously the Hilchas Makkos B'chav is not the same halachas as Hilchas Pidyon Ben. And according to Rashi, if you read the Rashi, which maybe we'll discuss in the Shabbos Hagadol Drasha, if there was no firstborn child, then the oldest kid died. So it's not so clear. But let's right. That's all. I'm just saying statistically. No, not necessarily. Rashi says openly the first older child. My point is this. Not my point. I saw this.
Makkos B'chav.
In Makkos B'chav, there was a machlokes on what I don't want to say the arguing, but what the main plague of Makkos B'chav was. The Tanakama is saying the main plague of Makkos B'chav was the victims of the firstborns, the plague upon them. That was the main thing, that everyone's firstborn, God forbid, should die. For the Mitzrayim, it should be a terrible thing that had such an effect on the Egyptians. That's the main part. And therefore, when you want to list off the plagues, you have to add on a word. It's not similar. The firstborns aren't dam tzradeya. They weren't the gun. They were the victim. Therefore, I add on the word makkos. Rabbi Yehuda comes along and says, no. Either he's saying don't forget, or he's saying that's the main plague. You can play games with this. He's saying, listen, when it comes to the main plague, or the part of the plague, don't forget the Medrash. The Medrash says that right before the 10th plague affected the Egyptians, the firstborns were like Dam. They plagued in a verb against the Egyptians. Just like Dam affected the Egyptians, just like Sfardea affected the Egyptians, the firstborns affected the Egyptians. And that's why you don't need the word makkos b'chayros. Makkos b'chayros is if there's an inconsistency between Dam, Sfardea, Keenan, then add in the word makkos. Rabbi Yehuda says, no. Take out, like Aronovich said, take out the mem. Don't call it the Adash B'achav. Don't add in the mem. Take out the mem, because not a makkos b'chayros, because no, it's consistent, because what? The main part was that they were the guns being used against the Egyptian nation, because there was a civil war. There was a civil war.
And those that survived the war, did they die anyways?
If they were first...
The Bukhar that rose up against the other Egyptians because they were afraid they're going to die, but they ended up dying anyway. Right?
Because you know why? Because Pari said, no, I will not let them go. Yeah, in Echanami. So the Bukharim killed off a massive amount of Egyptians in a civil war, and then they died also. But don't forget about that, or that's the main part of it, that you could debate on what they're saying. But the point is now, we brought down a couple different answers on why Rabbi Yehuda's acronym is teaching us stuff. It's not just a tongue twister. And of course, the legacy haggada, we have other approaches. Now let's have the chametz for some pizza. Thank you.